everybody and welcome to Fantastic Fun Folds. I'm Tatiana from Tatiana Creative Stamping Adventure and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator in Australia. I am a paper craft or a craft addict, love paper crafting, and I have been focusing on card making a lot lately because it is such a wonderful hobby to have. It's not as time consuming as say scrapbooking or making beautiful, wonderful things. I mean, not to say those things aren't fabulous. I love them all. But card making is just, you could make something small and really handmade and really filled with love and then send it to someone and brighten their day. I see lots of people hopping on already saying hello. So hello everybody. I am so thrilled to have you here. You know you're watching live if you see the little red live there. But if that's not there, don't you worry, please keep on watching and say hi anyway. I read all the comments, whether it's posted during the live or afterwards. And that's the same for my YouTube videos. So hello. I had a week off because I was visiting family and that was really lovely to see family. My parents hadn't seen the kiddos since before COVID, so that's special. But let's get back into it, and tonight we are going to do an Aperture card. Simple card, might make it a little bit more interesting with the way we do the Aperture. Anyhow, let's get to the craft desk and get stamping. So tonight we're going to do an Aperture card. Running a bit late. Was running late with dinner and so everything's running late. Just need to get my Imperial cheat sheet. Okay, so the start of this card is nothing over the top. Hello, there's too many people saying hello for me to individually name you. Anyhow, so we're going to start with an A4 sheet of paper. I have chosen Bermuda Bay and we're going to cut it in half, which is a 10.5 centimeters. And for those of my North American friends, I think that's the only place that uses letter, you'll be cutting your letter size paper at 4.25 inches, and then we're scoring it in half, so that's 14.8 in A4 A4 metric, and in Imperial that's at 5.5. And there is our card base. Nothing, like I said, nothing particularly fancy. And you fold it in half. And I like to use a bone folder to just burnish that fold. It means that the fold is nice and flat and it's not flipping up. That is that. Now we need a card front, and I have my little, ooh, maybe not. I have one. I was going to say I have my little cheat stash, but my cheat stash has got cutouts. I don't want to try to line them up, so I've got one for the inside, as so. So that'll be for our inside of our card, which we can stick down right now. And for those who would like the measurements, this is 10 centimeters by 14.3, and our North American Imperial buddies, it is 4 inches by 5.25, and I call this the card insert. Normally I don't stick these in, but today we won't be directly stamping onto it, so I thought, why not? Let's stick it down. And we need another one. I'm just trying to think, do I want, yes, I want it in Whisper White. So I'm grabbing Whisper White and cutting another one. So it's at 10 centimeters or 4 inches by 14.3 or 5.25 inch. And that will be for our card front. And that is all the cutting we need. Now we just need to do some die cutting, and we're going to use the layering circle dies. I was going to use a punch, but I thought So you could use a punch at this point, which I had prepped, and now I've decided to use the layering circle dies instead. And you'll see why in a moment. Now what I have done is I've got pre-cut all of the layering circle dies, and I want to pick which ones. Sorry, sweetheart. Lukey, can you tuck them in, please? Can you tuck the kitty in, please? Kidlets. Can you tuck the kidlets in, please? So we might as well use the layering aspect. So the layering circle dies have scalloped edges, and then they have plain circles. What kind of size? We'll go with that size. And so basically by using these cutouts, I can pick the two that I would like to coordinate and basically line them up and decide. So I have these cutouts basically so that I can play around with sizes and options before I cut, and I think I'm very happy with that combination. So now I'll put my templates to the side and grab the corresponding dies. So all I do is I take my template, find the right die, and then we can move on. Perfect. So the first one, so we're going to have to cut this out of both, and the idea is that we'll have the circle cut from the white cardstock. Is that right? I'm just trying to think. No, opposite. So we have the scalloped one, the bigger one, cut from the white, and then we'll cut the Bermuda Bay in the plain circle, and that'll mean that we're left with the Bermuda Bay on the inside. That'll make all sense in a moment. So basically what you need to do first off is to place your die or your punch, you can use a punch at this point, exactly where you would like it. So it's an aperture card, meaning hole, aperture like in photography, and aperture, the aperture is the size of the hole. You can make it any size. This is quite big, but I don't mind, it's going to be fun. So I'm going to take that to the die cutting machine and cut that out. I tidied up my desk and put everything away. That's annoyingly too far now. That out. We can carefully remove that. So I just used a little bit of washi tape to hold the die in place. And now, lining that back, lining that right. So the card front is cut a little bit smaller than the card base. And now we need to lay in that die. And what I'm going to do is take this cutout, make sure that's all lined up, holding that cutout there, and now placing the die. So the die is going to run through both, but that's okay, because if I move that, you can see that's not even. And then if I've moved it there, I can still see bits. So basically I'm using that to line up where I want this die to cut out. So we are cutting out a hole from our card base, the front of our card base. Let me know if I'm not explaining this particularly well. It works in my head. And now make sure you run that through opened. You don't want the die cutting to press into our inside of our card. What I did was I cranked that a few times through the die cutting machine so that I knew that it cut through both layers. And remove this circle. It's almost even, not quite perfectly even, but very close. Now I can remove little white scalloped. There we go. Ooh. So now we've got our aperture. We can see onto the inside of our card, and when we line this up onto the front, you'll see that we can see the bit of the Bermuda Bay on the inside. So that's the reason why I have used the layering circle dies. You don't have to have that double, that scalloped edge. You could forego that and just glue the two together and use a punch to punch through them at the same time. But I wanted to be a little bit different. And the last thing I want to do is I want to take the same circle die as we have here, and I've got a piece of watercolor paper, and I'm going to cut that die out one more time from that. And that's going to sit inside there, and it's going to be decorated so that when you open the card, it remains there. Now let's remove all these circles and get decorating. I am going to use the Bloom and Grow stamp set. And I'm going to use my favorite. This is my favorite flower. Actually, I've got two of the flower sets, and this is my favorite. Love this one, and I absolutely love this one as well. This one's pretty, but don't use it as much. And we're going to stamp that onto the watercolor paper. I need to do that first. I need my block. Go. And because this is photopolymer, I like to use the Stamparatus black mat underneath, just to give it a little bit of padding. And then I'll grab a grid sheet just to protect that, because I don't want stamping on my mat. First that. And we're going to stamp in Versamark and heat emboss in silver. So I'm going to start heating up my heat tool. I know it's a bit noisy, but it means that I can heat emboss it quicker. So I've got that already. I've got Versamark ink. Everyone is well. There's silence now that you've all said hello. There's silence. And going to stamp it not in the middle of the circle, and I'm pressing really hard because watercolor paper, the Fluid 100, is a bit textured, meaning that might not get a full proper impression the first time, and I can't restamp. So by adding a little bit of pressure, I am making sure that my stamp fully imprints onto the paper almost. And you can see it did a really good job. Now heat setting this. Can you see the magic? I just absolutely love the magic of heat embossing. Can you see it change? I hope you can see it changing. Ooh, getting hot. And there we go. And now, you love watching it turn. I do too. It's just, it's like the best bit. And now let's watercolor our image, our flowers, which I might just lower the camera for, because you don't need the full desk view. Woo! And I have chosen some very bright colors because that's the way I rumble. Mango Melody and Melon Mambo. So I've got a bit of ink there. I might just press in a little bit more, and I should have some of that ink as well. And I'm using the new water painters. The trick with them is to twist them off in the opposite direction to what you used to. And I'm just swapping the nibs because I've got water in the medium-sized nib and I want the small-sized one for this. And there we go. Let's see, I'll do all the flowers the same color. I'm going to start with, what's this, Mango Melody. It's like this beautiful orange yellow, and I'm watering down the ink. So I've added some drops of water there, and I'm going to cover petals in that. Actually, what we'll do all the flowers in Mango Melody. The little berries or the buds. I call them berries. If you've watched me a few times, you know that. I think they should be flower buds, but whatever they are, we will do them in the Melon Mambo. So I've given that a lightish wash of colour, and what I'm going to do is just heat set that. Normally I would let that air dry. I'm trying to avoid the inks as well, not to dry out my ink pads. But by heat setting, I can move on to the next layer without it spreading too far. So I'm now adding some darker, so I'm mixing in some more of the ink into the watered down area that I already created. And kind of, so this is watercoloring. I am no pro, no expert. I have not intensely studied it. But remember, we're paper crafters and we're just here to have some crafty fun. So it doesn't really matter how you do it. If you're having fun, I think you're doing it right. Just gonna heat set that. And try to create a mid-tone. So something in between. So remember, don't forget to nominate. I've got not a rule. It is for those watching on Facebook at the moment. I'm not sure how to deal with 2 platforms and nominations across 2 platforms. And there we go. Really liking that yellow orange. So I'm just going to squeeze, and you can see the ink rolling off that aqua painter, and this is our chamois. And now I can move on to the, what is it, Mango Melody? No, Melon Mambo. It's the MM. If I brought in Magenta Madness as well, it'll be too many M's. I'm going to add lighter Mango Melody. Yep. All good. And now heat set that quickly. Now you do need to be careful when heat setting this because it could reactivate the the embossing powder, but I'm being careful. And so I'm just going to add a drop of darker color to those berries, and once again cleaning my brush by squeezing it onto the chamois, and you can pretty much see the ink rolling off, which is pretty, I really enjoy that. Probably should enjoy it a little bit too much. And I've chosen Bermuda Bay. Need a bit more ink because I've got the Bermuda Bay card base, and I just want to bring that into this. So again, starting with a watered down version and adding that to all the leaves. Everyone's quite quiet tonight. No questions, comments, stories to share? And heat set that. Got some music coming in.
Bit of Elton John.
Elton John tonight. Nobody's chit-chatting, so the music is mesmerized by your watercoloring. That's why they're not talking, honey. Like I said, I'm no pro, but I am having fun. So I think that means I'm doing it right. Now I would like to watercolor in the background as well. And I don't want to do Bermuda Bay because it's going to blend too much, but conveniently we have a beautiful color called Coastal Cabana that is almost like a lighter version of Bermuda Bay, and I think that'll be perfect for the background. I'm going to do this super watered down, so I have some watered down bit already. So this is the reason why I like using the ink pad base or lid, that turns into the lid. So I love using the ink pad base for watercoloring or picking up ink and using that to watercolor, because whatever you don't use, it stays there and you can just add some water and start using it again next time. It's kind of very economical. And if you don't have, well, if you don't have enough ink on your ink pads, you should probably re-ink your ink pads. But you could also add drops of re-inker right onto the base there. And there is nothing wrong with that. So I'm just doing a light wash once again So this is Coastal Cabana. It's a lighter version of the Bermuda Bay. Well, it's not. It's a color on its own, but it can be considered lighter. And I'm going to heat set that briefly. So for those who are just joining us or hopping on and wondering, we are creating a Aperture card. This is Fantastic Fun Folds Monday. And so I'm now grabbing some of the darker ink. You can see I've kind of pulled that in, and I'm going to add that, and I'm going to actually squeeze my brush a bit. So we're going to create a watercolor texture here, and if you don't like it, move it around and play around with it. There is no right or wrong with how you do this. My point of this is just to have a layered, not a single color look. And you can see I'm using my finger. I could have used a tissue. But as I was saying, we're creating an Aperture card, and this is going to go on the inside of the Aperture. And I keep heat setting just to speed the watercoloring drying process up, because I want to layer that color on, and I can't layer it on if the previous layer is not dry. And I'm just heating the back, kind of uncurving the watercolor paper. So I am using our Fluid 100 watercolor paper. Just want it to be watercoloring. Look, Elizabeth, it's all about just having fun with it and playing with it. There is absolutely no right or wrong, and I'm going to leave it there. But I just want to make those leaves stand out a bit more. So I'm going to bring back the Bermuda Bay and go in with darker, just so that they stand out from that background a tad more, like that. I'm going to leave it at that. What was I saying? I was saying there's no right or wrong, just play around with it. Watercolor paper is a must. I have to say that it makes the world of difference. And pop the lid back on. It really does make the difference, the watercolor paper. Now, I'm going to keep the camera down. So we can now, remember I cut that circle exactly the same size as our Aperture, meaning that it can sit right in there. I might just tilt that on an angle. So I'm going to grab my liquid multi-purpose glue, squish it around, and carefully, so I'm pressing down the card front. This is our card base. I'm pressing down the front so that this sits right into that Aperture, and the liquid glue allows me to move it around a little bit, and just to make sure it's nice and glued down, I'm going to just put my clear block on there for a couple of seconds. Thank you, Margaret, for your nomination. You'd like to nominate your husband's cousin. So that's the inside of the card. You get that kind of picture going. So remember, you can nominate people as long as they're in Australia to receive this card in the mail, and I will send it on your behalf. So we've got the card front, and I was going to decorate the card front, to be honest. I was going to stamp the same stamp set, but I think it doesn't need it. I think that if we start stamping the front, it's going to be too busy, even in light stamping. So I'm going to leave that as, and let's see. Let's see, what can we, I think we need a sentiment. Hello? The card I shared today used hello. Let's see. What are the sentiments? Aha. I'm going to bring in peaceful moments. Let's see. Thinking of you with all my heart. Just a sentiment. I agree, Judy. That's what I'm going to go. So Priscilla is nominating a friend. So thank you for your nomination. And I'm going to put thinking of you with all my heart. Because I think that's a nice, lovely sentiment. Where is it? There it is. And it doesn't take away from our watercolouring. When I can't decide where to put a sentiment, I just... Oh, thank you, Judy. I'm not sure I can be nominated though, can I? Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure if I accept your nomination, but thank you so much for that beautiful, those kind and wonderful words. So I'm just adding glue to our card front. We're going to carefully line it up, and there we go. And so when we open the card, that's not really, you can kind of see it from that. I'll have to send it to you for you to send it to me. Or do I put it in the mail directing it to myself? Anyhow, so we've got that going. And okay, so what I was saying is when I can't decide where to put a sentiment, I start playing around with it. I take the stamp and I just move it around. I think there or there. Any opinions? What do we think? Down here or up here? I'm making an executive decision. And down here, and I'm going to stamp in a Melon Mambo. You may think I'm crazy, but there's a very little Melon Mambo in the card, in the design. By stamping the sentiment in Melon Mambo, it'll kind of bring that color in. You think center? I like it down here, to be honest. Oh dear, I've got it right side either place. I'm going to go with my gut. Down here. Perfect stamping. Hello, Megan. That's just popped up. You've caught me at the end. We have right corner. Yep, Margaret. I've already stamped it there, but I'm glad you agree. Oh, we do have a little bit of more stamping. So as you can see, this is an Aperture card for those joining in. I share full instructions. And please nominate someone that you would like to have receive this card. And I'm going to grab an envelope. And we're going to stamp. This is one of my fun tricks. I'm going to, with my fingernail, just roughly, okay, so I've imprinted with my fingernail where that envelope flap is right there. And the reason I do that, as you'll see in a second, I'm going to ink this up in Melon Mambo, since the sentiment was in Melon Mambo. And I'm going to have majority of the flowers below that little finger mark line. I don't even know if that's showing up in the camera, but it's right there. It's faint, and that's the idea. So I'm going to stamp that right there so that when the envelope flap is closed, you kind of have that peeking through from underneath. Mazza, hello! You've caught the end of it. but lovely for you to join me. Oh, and G2. So many people now popping in. Yes, you can see. Oh, good, Nancy. I'm glad. So that gives me just a bit of a guide. Nobody's going to really notice that I've nail marked. Is that a word? The envelope, but it just gives you a bit of a guide, and I really love that look of the stamp that we've used on the card peeking through from behind the envelope flap. You've been watching for a while, how wonderful. So there we have it, Aperture card for Fantastic Fun Folds. I hope that you've enjoyed this fun tutorial, fun folds. I've enjoyed making it. I have to show that bit. It really adds when you know that this is an aperture or a hole. And yes, so we shall see you next Monday night for another episode of Fantastic Fun Folds. I am not sure. Thank you, Angie. My cough was getting better, but while I was away, I forgot to take my medicine. Well, I had it with me, and then we had to come home, and then I went back, and yes. Anyhow, so the cough has kind of returned. Remember, please nominate. I'll keep the nominations open until Wednesday morning, which is my next live for creativity time, and then I'll draw out one of your names, and your nominee will receive the card in the mail from you and me, just to brighten their days, share a bit of sunshine. Thank you so much for all those love hearts. I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you for spending time with me, and I shall see you next time, either 10 a.m. on Wednesday or 8 p.m. next Monday. Bye for now.